Chief Information Officer Bob Orr joins us today on GC Conversations. Hello and welcome to GC Conversations, a show where each week we bring in faculty, staff, alumni, and friends, and we talk all things Georgia College in this community. We're glad you joined us today. You may be joining us via cable television on NBC TV4 here on Charter Cable or on NPR at 88.3 WRGC. So whether you're listening to us or watching us today, audience, we're glad you're here. We're here with Dr. Bob Orr, tell me your title.
Chief Information Officer.
We talked about this off the air, and I said, daggone it, because IT, information, whatever. So, but anyway, Bob, thanks for being here.
Yeah, sure thing. And let me say, it's good to be here with an old friend.
Absolutely.
And kind of giving away, you and I have some history, as a matter of fact.
We worked together for about 5 years at UNC Pembroke.
Sure did.
We're both native North Carolinians, and ironically, we end up down here in Georgia together.
And let me share with the folks that are watching today that actually you played a very important role with me being at Georgia College. A wonderful ambassador. When I found out that the position was open here, you were one of the first persons that I called and gave such a wonderful recommendation. And so in person, let me thank you for that, because it's been a wonderful stay so far. It has,
and we're glad you're here. And so tell us about that. How long have you been here?
Well, I started in July.
Okay.
So I guess I'm still a newbie.
Okay, all right.
But worked within the North Carolina system window for 30 years. Good. And as we said, last 5 years was with UNC Pembroke down in Lumberton. But I've always been involved in information technology from various aspects, everything from the instructional side. I actually started off as the first microcomputer technician at Western Carolina University. So a long history of doing a little bit of everything in technology. But finished up 30 years with the North Carolina system and still didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, and just really enjoyed Georgia College, knew of it, of its excellent reputation, and just glad to be here.
Well, let's go back and I want to go into information technology.
Sure.
Because one of the things you just said was repairing stuff. So, so let's talk about this. First of all, when I thought about the show, I said, well, information technology, maybe 20, 30 years ago, I remember going to a computer bank when I was in college. We had one room on campus that had about 15 computers in it.
Back in the day.
That's right. and if you didn't get there early, you lost your seat. And then if you lost, I remember one night I stayed up all night, had my paper, and I was getting ready to hit type, and I hit the wrong button, and it was gone. And I thought, oh my goodness, I got to do it another 6 hours. But so things have changed to probably a 1, 2, 3, 5-person department to now where you are the epicenter of the university, because if technology shuts down, we're not shutting down, but we're so used to it. In a lot of ways, we do shut down.
It undergirds everything that we do. It really does. Good point. It's kind of like the medical profession. Years and years ago, we relied on that general practitioner, and that he or she could do pretty much provide our medical care for us. In the same way, back in the day with technology, you had a few people, and technology was a fairly narrow field, and those individuals could handle the breadth of the technology coming down. Okay, but just as in the medical profession, now information technology is so broad, and there's so many aspects of it that you literally have to have, discipline-specific people to handle certain elements of it, from the network to desktop support to application programming to security, authentication. All of those are disciplines within IT now.
And the last I checked, technology changes on a fairly regular basis.
Well, every once in a while. Depends on how much money you have.
So that's another thing of keeping up with, because it's not slowing down.
And you do not want to get behind, because trying to catch up is 2 to 3 times as much work as staying abreast and keeping things moving. And so you've got to keep your research going, just as in any discipline. You got to keep your reading, your research, in touch with your colleagues, finding out what others are doing, because it is a constantly changing and emerging field.
Now, how'd you get interested in this? Take us back to Western Carolina.
Well, you know, actually, I was in broadcasting.
Okay.
And and I always, as a boy, enjoyed taking things apart. Never got them put back together, but I enjoyed taking things apart and learning what made it tick. And so that, and my brother got involved with radio, and that really interested me too. So I got my first class FCC license back then, and that enabled me to work on transmitters and things like that.
Right.
And I became involved in radio and working in all aspects, everything from sales to broadcasting.
Right. Yeah.
And then
that's a good. Let me stop you there, because in radio, particularly years ago, and well, even now, I mean, you're doing everything from spinning the records to interviewing to fixing the equipment.
Really,
right? Yeah,
really. I did a morning talk show for I don't know how many years, and then literally got off of that and repaired the transmitter, and then went downtown and sold the advertising.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
But stayed in that in about 10 years and realized that you know, talk is cheap, and I was running my mouth for a living. So it was time to look for something else, and I really enjoyed electronics. Went to a technical school, community college, got my 2-year degree in electronic engineering, and as I was finishing up, a very interesting story if we've got time, a couple of Apple II computers were in the lab. And I asked the instructor, what's the deal, can I work on those? And he said, sure. And so just by swapping out, I didn't know what booting a computer even meant.
Right.
And by swapping out components, I was able to find out what was wrong with both of them. A few days later, the instructor came and said, somebody at Western wants to talk to the guy that fixed those computers. And that led to my first job at Western, in higher education at Western Carolina University. I was the first microcomputer technician that they hired.
Okay. The old Apple II.
The old Apple II.
Which I believe is the certainly the forerunner to everything that's Apple today.
It was, and so, you know, back and we were working on Apple IIs and the OK Pros, which were the first portable computers that weighed about 40-something pounds. And so a wonderful way, you know, was trained on the Lisa, the Apple Lisa, saw the first Macintoshes come out. So looking back, it's been just a wonderful journey through IT.
Well, I want to talk about that. We're up against a break, but when we come back, I do want to talk about just this history of how you were the first micro technician there, and then to now leading a division, and just all the changes through technology over those years. So,
sounds good.
Well, with Bob Orr, I'm Wendell Staten, and we'll be right back on GC Conversations.
Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Let's switch to Energy Star light bulbs and stop burning through cash. Saving energy saves you money.
Hello and welcome back to GC Conversations. I'm your host, Wendell Staten, and thanks for joining us today. And again, whether you're listening or watching us today on NBC TV4 on Charter Cable or listening on WRGC 88.3 FM, we're glad that you're with us. And Bob, during our break there, we were talking about WRGC, and I believe you have a history with that.
I do.
Network.
You know, very comfortable when I came here and saw the call letters. Believe it or not, I worked at WRGC in Silva, North Carolina. That's where the RGC originated, and Wendell, kind of a serious background to that. RGC stands for Ronnie Gerald Childress.
Gotcha.
And he was the son of the station owner, Jimmy and Mickey Childress. Okay. And Ronnie unfortunately had an accident while working on a transmitter one day and was killed there in the radio station. At that time, the call letters were WMSJ, and then they changed Macon, Swain, and Jackson counties. And so after that, they changed the call letters to WRGC for Ronnie Gerald Childress, and that was the original station. But by the way, his name is also on the baseball stadium at Western Carolina University. Okay. So that's kind of the background. I worked at WRGC for a number of years, and then that station eventually shut down, and I think that's how the call letters were able to. So when I came here and saw WRGC, I felt at home. I felt right at home. I did.
I've always wondered about call letters, and I'm not even sure what ours stand for. I know the GC obviously is Georgia College.
Radio Georgia College.
Okay, there we go.
That's right. I don't know. Yeah.
So, but typically it's counties or cities or wherever you're at.
Originally came from the Navy. Got the call letters from the Navy, from one of the Navy ships, and they originally went to Silva, North Carolina, and then merged down to here. So
okay.
Little background.
Yeah, neat story.
Yeah.
So we left off talking a little bit about technology. Sure. And let's talk about how just technology has changed. So when you first go to Western, and you said you were the micro
computer. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And how many folks were probably in, if you had to guess, in IT at that point?
Well, in the
campus?
central IT, I don't know. Maybe there was maybe 10, but
Okay.
they helped handle the mainframe computer. And at the time, there was some feeling that the people could do everything they needed to do on a dumb terminal and a mainframe.
Right.
We started off with microcomputers, and they were just starting to get, the Radio Shack was beginning to sell a lot of them. They were making their way into the business world. And we put in the first, at Western, one of the first writing labs using Apple II computers. And it was in the library, much like our LITC here.
Right.
And it was a place where students could come and write and use them, and the writing center was next door.
Right.
And that's really how we got started in the microcomputer labs.
Okay. Yeah, because again, like saying that there used to be computer labs. In most, seems like most students almost have their own laptop now. But
now, 90-something%. Yeah, absolutely.
But it used to be there was a room where you had access to a computer, and you didn't write the things out anymore, your notes out, you actually type them out, or I still call it type. My kids say keyboarding, I believe.
Well, let's go a little bit before that. Before that was punch cards, and you lined up to the window and handed your punch card, and somebody ran it. And the whole thing then about technology was protecting the number of cycles on the mainframe, because you only had a limited power in the mainframe.
Okay.
And so the whole thing about having a computer center was protecting that mainframe and protecting the number of cycles and doling them out and letting students using them. And it was a different philosophy then, because you had to make sure you had the internal resources necessary to run the computing for the campus.
Okay.
And so it was protecting the cycles.
So in essence, if I hear you correctly, you had X amount of punch cards that could basically make it through the day without the mainframe shutting down.
The computer had X number of cycles.
Okay.
And so basically you were controlling those cycles and who were using them. And you always had more work to do than the cycles could do.
Right.
But it's a different philosophy than our information technology philosophy that we embrace today, where everything is, you know, totally distributed. Bring your own device, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when did you notice the shift of the computer center, computer lab per se, which we still have certainly across the country, but when that became, when was that shift starting to take place? When we
in the late '80s, early '90s, and really, I have to, in my personal experience, I have to contribute Apple to that.
Right.
And the release of the Macintosh, when they released the Mac II, and when they had the hard drive and all that, you know, to me it signified that it's ready for prime time.
Right.
And then seeing the ease of networking with the Mac at that time, that to me was really the turning point of bringing about distributed computing, the more computer labs, putting putting computers in students' hands. That was really the change in the late '80s, and then of course we had the Netscape came along, and the World Wide Web. Just a wonderful experience there. Things just opened up.
Now let me go back. You said the term network.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a novice computer question because I have no idea.
I hope I can answer it.
What is the network? When people say, "Oh, the network," what does that mean?
Well, the network basically is your connectivity.
Okay.
It can be wired or wireless now.
Okay.
Back in the day, it was totally wired.
Right.
And the network went through many different forms until we got to what we call our Ethernet standard that we're using today. But back then, Apple came out with something called Apple Talk.
Right.
And it allowed computers to talk to each other. That a person from home could string things together and make it work. Before, this had been the purview of highly trained computer professionals, you know.
Okay.
And when Apple Talk came out, it provided a way to link things together, and suddenly you could start sharing that printer, or you could start sharing a file with someone.
Okay.
And that was really, then it emerged into Local Talk, which used much like the same wires as your telephone line.
Right.
And that it allowed you to expand it a little bit further.
Right.
And kind of the evolution into Ethernet and so on and so forth. But I credit Apple, really, in my background.
Right.
It was the Apple experience that really helped really bring the first networks into Western Carolina. I installed the first networks, put Novell servers in, used a lot of Local Talk connectivity as well as Ethernet, brought the Macs and the Windows together into a server-based environment instead of the mainframe.
Right.
The computer center at the time was not very happy with me because this was being done outside the computer center. But those were fun times, very exciting times as well.
Now, you use the term Ethernet again, novice. Tell me what that means.
Ethernet is just a type of wiring, copper wiring, and the protocol of how the computer sends the information down that wire. Okay. It's got to send some information that says, hey, this is who I am, heads up, this is where I want this to go, and then here's the data. Basically, it's a protocol, if you will.
Okay. You also mentioned in there at some point we shifted to the World Wide Web, the Internet. Again, I'm trying to think. I think this was early 90s probably when the Internet really started to...
Yeah, I mean, I can remember using Netscape for the first time, and because I was a PC guy, I wasn't a mainframe guy, and they had ARPANET and some of those other systems for interconnectivity, but it was all keyboard based, and I was a Mac, I was a GUI guy. I liked to point and click. I didn't know, But when I used the World Wide Web, I'll never forget the first time when I was using Netscape, and I hit a site in Singapore. And I never will forget this. I was in my office, and I hit a site in Singapore, and that's when it really connected to me. Wait a minute, this is the world. And I have this information at my fingertips that I don't have to do all this programming to get to. And I remember, just that epiphany moment there. Wow. And then working with a faculty member, he and I still joke to this day about who had the first web server at Western. But Bob Houghton was the gentleman's name, Dr. Houghton, a tremendous guy in instructional technology, still teaching at Western. He was on the phone with me. He was standing up a Mac web server. I was standing up my Mac web server, and we were comparing notes across the phone, helping each other get these things stood up. So we debate who mine was first or whether his was first. But interesting story. We were actually using Macs at the time to really put in place the first web servers at Western.
Well, we're having a great conversation. We're up against another break with Bob Orr, the Chief Information Officer here at Georgia College, and we'll be right back to finish our last segment today on GC Conversations.
Really? Buzz, what's up, man? You left some leaves burning out here.
Yeah, I just came in just for a second.
Come on, man. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. You could torch the whole neighborhood.
It's a good point there, Smokey.
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to GC Conversations. I'm your host, Wendell Staten, today joined by Chief Information Officer Bob Orr, again on Charter Cable, NBC TV4, or WRGC 88.3 FM. We thank you for tuning in today. And by the way, Bob, you got a great radio voice.
Well, thank you.
How about that?
Thank you.
I could tell you had radio in your background.
Well, that's fun. I enjoyed broadcasting, yeah.
We're talking about technology and off the air there, but I want to get back into that because I'm just amazed at it. But tell me what your role here is at our university.
Well, I manage the technology infrastructure for the campus. You know, the network, the centralized enterprise systems such as our student information system that students use to register. You know, our authentication system, really tying it all together. And the computer refresh, the computers that we're using here today, for instance, we refresh those and help folks behind the scenes. We're not the application experts many times on the PCs, but we help them with the hardware and so on and so forth. So we're really on an enterprise level trying to support the campus, undergird their mission, if you will.
Right. Now, what would happen if something happens to our IT center? Okay, other than everybody would go, oh my goodness, what am I going to do today? I don't have email. But well, how do we? What's your role in that area?
Well, we maintain a business continuity disaster recovery plan.
Right. Yeah.
And right now we're working a lot to increase our resiliency so that we wouldn't have necessarily an extended outage.
Correct.
Right now we would be relying on some of the system resources.
Right.
We have some redundancy here on campus. One critical part is our network. If we were to get a unfortunate fiber cut in a place, we would be down a while till we get it spliced back. But we're actually working on a number of initiatives so that we have a self-healing network. So if something was to cut, we could quickly get it back, or it would heal itself.
Right.
Or we're working with some colleagues about setting up an off-site disaster recovery site.
Right.
That sort of thing. Because again, as we started the conversation, you need technology to get your job done. It's not about the job. It's just undergirds what you do.
Yeah. No, I really, this fascinating behind the scenes things, because we as the user typically never see.
I hope you don't, Wendell, and I hope you never have to even think about it. You know, that's the goal. If it's in the background and you don't have to think about it, we've done our job.
And that was my point, in that we never see it. And I'm sure in the background there's people sweating, running around going, oh, let's avoid this, whatever. But we as a user rarely see this. And it's just something as simple as probably the best thing I see is that in my inbox, what is spam or a virus or whatever, you know, y'all have got a way to kick that out of there somehow. I have no idea how you do it, but I know I don't have to worry about it. So
well, I couldn't tell you how we do it. So that's magic. That's the magic part of it. No, but really, you know, when we're doing our job, then it is seamless to you. And we've got a ways to go. We've got a great group of folks here, a lot of good foundation, and we're working to build on that. You know, I'm really excited about looking down the road at the roadmap and putting it together, a strategic plan. Going to be having a couple of town hall meetings with the campus to gather input and also to share some of the things we're doing. So, you know, it's good. I feel really good about things, very excited, and I think good things in the future.
Let's talk about the future, because we don't really know where it's going to go. We can kind of have trends and assess it. And like, for example, off the air, we were just talking that how quickly technology is embedded into our culture.
Unbelievable, yeah. I
mean, now you look around, everybody's got a cell phone. You've probably got one on right now. Everybody's got
this is a commercial. No, I don't think we can show that. But
you know, everybody's got a personal computer device.
Sure.
You know,
2 or 3 of them.
Right. And 5 years ago, we didn't have that.
We don't. And you know, the iPad is such embedded in our culture, but, you know, it's only a couple of years old. The iPhone 5, look at the rollout of that and how big that was. It's amazing how quick we assimilate these technologies into our everyday lives. And I go back to a good friend of mine who I worked with many years ago, great mentor, and he always said there's 3 things, you know, make it faster, cheaper, or, you know, or better, and pick 2 out of the 3. You're not going to get all 3. But, you know, really these new technologies are the integration of the technologies into our culture. You know, if somebody does it faster, they do it, you know, there's quality, they do it better, they do it at a lower cost, we're going to jump on it.
That's right.
Makes our life easier, and we're going to jump on it. And that's what many of the, I think, successful technologies have done.
Right.
You know, the iPhone and the mobile phones have made it easier to access information. So it is amazing how quickly we pull those technologies in.
You make that comment, accessing information, because that's really what our culture has become. I want information. I remember at my commencement, the speaker was Dr. Dick Proust said, you know, think about it, folks. This is 1990. He said, you want to watch a video, you can go down the street and have it in 5 minutes. You want to microwave something. He said, the thing, what I'm telling you is, in 20 more years, this is going to be a joke, what I'm telling you now. And he's exactly right.
He's right. It's not about, the access underlies what we need to do. It's really about the information literacy now, which, you know, you had a previous show, or you have another show on with Joe Motnick, and new folks here in the library. But it's about information literacy. It's about knowing where to go get information, and then how to use that information. Because the information, anything you want to know about everything is at our fingertips. But I love the commercial out there that, where did you hear that? I heard it on the internet. Well, you know, there's a lot of information out there that isn't necessarily true, but it's how to use that information. And the vast array of information that's available to our students is just astonishing. And I'm really, one of the things I really like about Georgia College is the quality of our students and how they're able to communicate and use that information and write. I mean, I'm just blown away, just at the quality of our students.
Well, I know I shared that with you, and I share it every time when people ask me, what's the thing that most impresses you about Georgia College?
Students.
It's unbelievable.
It's the students. Absolutely.
They're just fantastic.
Absolutely. Of course, we have wonderful faculty.
Absolutely.
But the students just are dynamite.
That's why we're here. We're closing out with our last minute here.
Okay.
Talk quickly about the future. What does the future hold for IT?
Oh, gee.
Who knows?
Seamless.
Okay.
Making things seamless, making things integrate. It's all about integrating various bring your own device technologies so that people can do the same thing in multiple ways, and making it easy for you so that technology doesn't get in your way but yet supports what you do. It's about access. It's about making it seamless.
You know what I relate your world to is at the end of a athletic contest, if you don't know the referees were out there, they did their job. And that's the way you described it, is if if everything's running seamless in your world, we've done our job today.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And what we want to do is be aware of what's coming down the pike and know our customers so well, know those we serve so well that we have anticipated their needs and we have the technology in place ready for you. It's easy to say, hard to do.
That's right.
But that's a goal. That's a vision.
Yeah.
Knowing our folks so well that we have the technology ready when they're ready.
Yeah. Well, Bob, it's been a great show.
Hey,
Unbelievably,
man.
our time's up.
Unbelievable. Wendell, you're a good friend, and it's good to talk with you and good to see you. Yeah.
Great to have you today. And for Bob Orr, I'm Wendell Staten, and we'll see you next time on GC Conversations.